What's up, everybody? This is Sean with Morning Lifter. Thanks for joining us today. I've got another awesome guest on the panel. His name is Jud Logan. He's a four-time Olympian. He's the head coach of track and field at Ashland University. He's a local guy, at least in my area. He played football at Kent State University, was on the track team there, and is just a world-class athlete and a world-class individual. And Jud, I'm going to give you a little background here. You probably don't know because it's been so long ago, but when I was going into my senior year in high school, I actually attended your camp at Ashland.
Oh, the track and field camp in the summer?
Yes, I did.
That's the biggest track and field camp in the Midwest United States. We usually have 250 to 300 kids. We've recruited out of that camp. We've seen other kids go on to receive numerous scholarship and walk-on opportunities out of that camp. So that is something that we're very proud of, the type of instruction that we give. And this is the first year in 25 years that we did not have a summer camp. So I can't wait to get back to doing what we do best, and that's our summer camp.
Yeah, I remember how detailed it was, and the number of speakers that you had, and the guest throwers and all the participants. It was just incredible. And I can't tell you how much I took from that. Even though football was my number one sport, I did track. It's like if you're playing football, you've got to do something in the spring, and you're either playing, baseball or you're participating in track. And so I was a thrower, and I took a lot of what I learned from there and used it my senior year, and it was really, really good. So I mean, that's not surprising. I mean, that camp was and still is a top-notch class act. So.
Did we have all-you-can-eat pizza or all-you-can-eat ice cream sundaes that year?
Oh, boy. I don't know. I can tell you whatever it was, I probably stuffed my face as much as I possibly could.
There you go.
Because I still had my fat kid tendencies then. So
right on, man.
It was, I was no holds bar when it came to all you can eat anything. I mean, those are, that's one of the greatest marketing terms in America, right? All you can eat and free. So,
yes.
Yeah, anytime you put those two together, you got some good things going. So there's a lot that I want to cover with you, but I guess the first thing I want to do is kind of go back, and I want to talk to you a little bit about training. And can you talk to me when you were in the prime of your competition with the Olympics? Can you give me a comparison from training back then to how you're training kids now? Is everything, I guess what I'm asking is, have you seen any change in the way in which training especially for track and field, has there been a change that you've seen in the way kids train now versus how you trained back then?
Yeah, when I first started coaching at Ashland 25 years ago, I thought it was simple. I would just give them the programs that I was doing, and everyone would have the success level that I did. And what I found out in a hurry is that's just not the case, that they didn't have the background that I did. I came out of a high volume program with Al Schotterman at Kent State, where we were actually doing high rep Olympic lifts. God forbid, but we were doing 15s, then 13s, then 11s, then 9s in the hang snatch, and things that could get you fired as a strength and conditioning coach today. And so I had this massive base. I started lifting very early in high school. I didn't really come to love lifting until Al Schotterman came in January of my senior year. He had been a 1972 Olympian in the hammer throw, and he taught me to fall in love with the squat. And, so I went from doing leg presses at 700 pounds to barely being able to do 225 with any stability for high reps, to 3 years later squatting 770 in a powerlifting competition, single ply. And but when I was in the peak of my career, I was fortunate to have a number of great mentors. Al Schotterman, Stuart Toger, who was the national hammer coach, Louis Simmons, who I walked into the weight room when he was training at the old Ohio State Stadium when they called it the pit. And he used to train in the pit. And I was at a meet there. I had just broken the American record, and I walked in, and it was kind of like, he lifted his head and recognized me. I lifted my head and recognized him. No words were initially spoken, but I was just fascinated by what was going on there. And he came up to me and he said, "Hey, I watched you throw the hammer today." He goes, "I got some things I think that can help you." And so I learned a lot from Louis. And then eventually my mentor, Charles Poliquin, probably had the greatest influence on my training. But in terms of what I did and what I do coaching wise and where it has evolved to, we've probably gone more to a volume of actual throws and then stop trying to duplicate specificity in the weight room to the throws, because I just don't think it's accomplishable. Certainly, if you've read Dr. Bondarchuk's book, Transfer of Training, there are certain exercises that transfer very well to the throws to a certain point. But after that, there's a couple elements that I think we missed back in the 80s and 90s, and that was speed training. And again, that's, the Louis Simmons's speed bench and, some of those unload days. I went 10 years without an unload week. The only thing that unloaded me was an injury. I never even heard of an unload week. Why would you, when you're making all this amazing progress, why would you stop and take a download week? Why wouldn't you just keep your pedal on the metal?
Right.
And, so for me, I have become a smarter coach than I was when I was an athlete, and realized that, especially at Division II, although we get a number of blue chip athletes, a lot of the athletes that I get need more foundational throwing than they need a 700-pound squat. And so, I've never had anyone in my program squat 700 in my 25 years. So that's probably not going to happen in my last 6 or 7 years. So I think the ability to learn a lot through stabilization and, the cursed word of functional weakness, which, a lot of people don't believe in. It is something, I don't know what you want to call it. It is something that, I believe in. I think you have to have strong VMOs to be able to stabilize a squat. I think you have to have a strong posterior chain through the deadlift and the RDL to maximize your potential in a snatch and a power clean. So a lot of my thought process is evolved. And I've said on a number of podcasts is that 90% of what we do is set in stone. I mean, we're going to clean, we're going to squat, we're going to snatch, we're going to jump, we're going to bench, we're going to incline, we're going to do all the great auxiliaries, we're going to use bands, we're going to use chains, we're going to do all of that. But I spend 90% of my time every year, every summer, trying to figure out the next 10% and looking back and saying, okay, you added this and it just flat out did not work. You added this and we had significant gains. So what stays and what goes is imperative for today's coaches.
I really like the fact that you go back and that's what I think all good coaches should do, right? They know what works and like you said, that's the foundation, but then you're consistently reflecting back on how to make maybe not incredible gains, but make consistent gains and consistent processes, right? I mean, that's
at our level, the 1% to 2% difference is the difference between first and fourth.
Yeah,
it's the
absolutely.
Difference between fourth and ninth. And ninth doesn't score my team any points at the NCAA championship. I'm trying to win national titles. We're the defending champion currently in the men and the women's, because we lost our indoor championship one day before the championships were to start. We were already in Alabama. We'd already had our first practice, and we were set to start competition the next day. And we had that indoor championship taken away. And then in a snap of a finger, 2 weeks later, we lost our outdoor championships. But the year before, we had won the indoor and the outdoor title by 1 point. And so that 1 to 2% is very important to me. And a lot of it is just being able to drop your ego and realize that this master plan that you thought was going to be the best thing ever because you'd read it in a book or you'd read it in an article, just didn't work for your program, just maybe didn't work for your throws, or it just didn't work for that time of the year. And maybe that exercise that we put all that emphasis on for a 3 to 4 week block would be better served in the fall as part of a circuit.
Yeah.
You know, so you've got to be smart about it. You've got to be willing to change. You've got to be willing, you know, every year I try to read, you know, 2 books every summer. I just finished David Goggins's book, and I just this week finished Chris Duffin's book, The Iron and the Eagle.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm trying to glean that 1 to 2%. I'm not trying to change my program. You know, there's certain people, Instagram's the greatest thing in the world. There's a lot of hack coaches out there that are selling voodoo, but there's a lot of good coaches out there, guys like Joe Ken and, you know, guys like Bert Soren that are giving us information that can really help us. And you just got to be willing to learn, and you've got to be willing to adjust, but you've got to have a foundation. You got to have something that you're 90% that you stake your reputation on, because if you change every year how you train from, you know, 1 set to failure to German volume training to Poliquin to Simmons to all of these things and say we're only going to be that, that's the biggest fault you can make in training.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with you. It's the change in how players, you know, the evolution of players. Have you seen or have you experienced kids that have been a little bit more difficult than others? You know, maybe they came from an esteemed program where, you know, they were just so used to doing it one way. You know, were there bad habits? Like, what would be the worst bad habit that you had to break amongst players that would come in new to the program?
When I was in high school, we did it this way. And that could be about lifting, only doing a half squat, only no lights, no heavies. And, you know, I rely a lot on my seniors. I don't know if any coach is willing to admit this, but I certainly am. I would say that there's been 50% of my kids that through the first 4 weeks of training at Ashland wondered if they made the right decision. And, you know, I'm sure they called home and it was like, I don't know what I'm doing. This is so much different than I've ever done. It's really hard. And eventually my upperclassmen, they sell that program. They talk to those kids. They mentor those difficult kids. And they tell them, say, you know, look, you're a 170-foot high school discus thrower. When I came in here, I was 156. Nobody recruited me. Coach Logan believed in me. I believed in him. I bought into the program. And now I am in my junior year as a 5-time All-American, throwing a 2K discus 190 feet after being 156 and non-recruited out of high school. And it's the sooner that you buy in, the sooner that you have a belief in the program, you know, because I can sit there and tell them that we've had more national champions in the throws and more All-Americans in the throws than any program in the history of Division 1, 2, or 3. But that's just coach speak.
Yeah.
It has to come from your training partners. It has to come from other athletes. And so I'm very fortunate that you have to create a culture that your upperclassmen are responsible for those hours away from training when the coach is not available.
That's I experienced that a lot too, even when I was in college. You know, it really did. The good teams had the program running from within, and even when I was a coach, that was the same way. You know, you always saw the good teams had that senior level buy-in, and it always made things a lot easier to do. I mean, it was just as a coach, you know, from a coach's standpoint, and all of those young kids, you know, they're going through those that brand new environment of, you know, I'm sure everybody at some point in time questioned their own sanity, whether or not what they were doing was the right thing to do. And sometimes it's not for everybody. I mean, college athletics is an extreme demand, you know, it's an extreme demand. So
It really is. And, you know, there's no program in the country that's never lost a kid.
right.
It's devastating to the coaches to see someone either give up on the process or just believe that the grass is going to be greener on the other side. But, you know, we've been fortunate that, you know, we've got a really high graduation rate, and our kids have a real stick-to-itiveness. And, you know, the one thing is that a lot of the kids that I recruit, had they had one more year in high school, they would have been big scholarship D1 recruits. But maybe they're a little bit younger. Maybe they didn't have a great high school coach. Maybe they've got this great frame, but they've never really fully utilized weight training to help them. They were 3-sport athletes. You know, the worst thing for me as a coach is to have someone email me and say, you know, this is what I've thrown. And I asked, so what have you been doing? Oh, I've been a full-time thrower for 4 years. I've got a personal coach. I've been powerlifting. Here's my numbers. You know, that's a difficult kid to improve. I want the kid that's been out there, you know, playing volleyball, playing basketball, running track and field, doing other events. I want athletes because to throw the hammer, which is where we've had our most All-Americans and, you know, really what we do best, you have to be an athlete and you have to be able to move. There has to be a grace and ballet. You know, I've brought in, you know, Pilates instructors and yoga instructors to work with my kids on pliability, flexibility, movement patterns. And a lot of the stuff that we do in our training is movement based, that is based on a bar speed and a velocity. I'm not really interested in your 1 RM. I'm really interested in how fast you can move your 3 to 4 RM, and that you show me that you're creating more bar speed, that you're becoming more powerful, and that your overhead ball throw and your standing long jump and your standing 3 hops and your vertical jump are improving. Those numbers are way more important to me than a big back squat.
Right. You touched on it because that was going to be my next question. Thoughts on kids nowadays, and you see this all over social media too, kids quitting multiple sports so that they can focus on one. You know, they say that, oh, I'm going to specialize in football. I'm going to specialize in baseball. I'm going to specialize in basketball. Have you seen any negative effects from that? You know, I'm going to specialize in track, where you would mention like a lot of schools are losing those athletes because they're being told, hey, you're going to get recruited if you specialize in one sport versus the other. You know, what are you telling your recruits about the importance of being an athlete?
You know, I think there sometimes comes a time where specialization can work. I think it has to be potentially maybe just your senior year because you've really got a scholarship opportunity. You're gonna graduate early and enroll early at an Ohio State University or something like that. But, you know, you see all the statistics. I think it was when Clemson won the national championship, of their starting 22, 17 did track and field through their senior year in high school for either speed and power development. It just makes you a better athlete. And, you know, sometimes that going from 3 to 2 can really be beneficial, but I don't think that should happen till after your freshman year. So you've really had a chance for your body to develop. And, you know, I think younger kids should be out playing soccer and out playing lacrosse. You know, my nephew started off in lacrosse, and, you know, he ended up getting a full scholarship for lacrosse and a full offer from Purdue for football. he ended up going to the University of Denver for lacrosse. But just that athleticism that came from playing soccer as a young kid and playing lacrosse as a young kid is what gave him that ability to have choices and to be so athletic that everybody was interested in somebody like that. So, I think it's important. I don't think you have to do 3 or 4 sports all the way through high school. I'm not even sure you need all this like summer league volleyball and AAU basketball and even lacrosse, these tournaments, 7 out of 8 weekends in the summer. And then these kids come back and start football.
They're burned
a
out.
week. They are burned out.
Yeah.
And, so I think that, parents are pushing this way more than sometimes what the student athlete want to do. But it just seems like this has become, they've been sold that the only way to a scholarship is by competing in tournaments and being seen, when that's the farthest thing from the truth. When you're good, you're good. And yes, if you go over and you get invited to play in the Under Armour lacrosse tournament over in Baltimore, heck yeah, go. But to have 7 other tournaments and to give up every single weekend and then have 1 week before two-a-days start in football, I don't know if I can get on board with that.
Right. I would agree with you. It's hard to see because you see the kids trying so very hard, and they go balls to the wall 9th, 10th, halfway through 11th grade, and then they get so burned out they don't want to do anything anymore. And then you see all that potential just go out the window, and it's like such a fine line to step on. And
I think they get to their senior season and they realize they've missed a lot. They've missed a lot of growing up. They've missed a lot of social interaction with their friends that, maybe weren't the great athlete that they were, and they weren't invited to these tournaments. So, I think there's got to be a blend. I've got another nephew that has been playing some lacrosse tournaments this summer. He's also been offered numerous D1 football scholarships as a sophomore, going into his junior year this year. But his parents have pulled him out of a couple tournaments this summer just because he was tired. Yeah. And the coach was like, we can't win without him being there. And he's like, well, I want my son to have an opportunity to recover. He's got thigh contusions. He's exhausted. He's not getting any rest. He's not having any, social interaction. And then with COVID, it just makes it so much tougher, So I think there can be a fine line. And I think that parents just have to watch pushing their kids every single weekend of the summer for greatness. Because sometimes a lot of my athleticism came from playing kick the can and, pick up, tackle, or touch football games and softball games and just, riding bikes and BMX and, all of that stuff that these kids today, they just never have an opportunity to do.
You're exactly right. I mean, that was, I remember that with my own childhood too. It was, hey, let's call up a couple friends, let's go do something. And then it evolved into, a full-on made-up game of some sorts, and
you'd ride home at lunchtime and grab a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and Gatorade, and you were out the door, and you weren't going to see personal trainers, and you weren't you weren't going to practices that are supposedly not mandatory, but if you don't go, you're looked down upon by the coach. And, it's just, we'd go on our bikes till we heard the dinner bell. My parents had a dinner bell. I had 5 kids growing up. My father had played for Woody Hayes at Ohio State and was a professional football player. And, he never pushed us, but if at 7, 8 o'clock at night, we were like, hey, Dad, can you come throw some pass routes? He'd be out there till we couldn't see the football anymore. And, that's just the way that I was raised. That's the way that I was parented. And that's the way I try to coach my program. Like I said, I've been very blessed to have a lot of great light givers and mentors in my life that have helped lead me down a path to success.
Absolutely. And the success that you've had at Ashland, without a doubt, speaks for itself. And so to rewind a little bit, I'd like to look at your individual thought process and the way you trained as when you were training for the Olympics. Um, what was your mindset like? Because something like that is extraordinarily demanding, right? I mean, the amount of not only the amount of training that you had to do, but the weights that you had to lift, the the individual demons that you had to battle, I'm sure within your own mind, right? Because
Yep.
it's so much different than like the individual sports, like a golf, for example, or a tennis, or even a track and field, where it's there you're not necessarily relying on somebody else. There's only one person to rely on, and it's you. And can you talk about the difference between, since we'll use football for the example, since you played football as well, um, what was the mindset differential between being able to count on the guy next to you in the trenches in football versus you know thinking to yourself, well, I've got to get my footing right, or my turn's got to be right to make the right throw. Can you talk about the mindset difference between that?
Yeah, and for me, I'll rewind just a little bit, and going back to when I was 8 to 10 years old, and my family of seven, 5 kids, would walk into a restaurant. We'd go out once a month, and to see the level of respect that my father had from people in the community, and I knew that that was something that I wanted. Okay, and I thought the only way that I could get that was from football. So I put my all into football. I never loved football. I was never great at football, but I gave my best effort. I had no nose for defense. I was a wide receiver. And not until I got into college at Kent State University did I really start to realize that I did not have the physical preparedness, because these guys, these juniors and seniors, were just rocking me. And, I decided that I wasn't going to let that happen again. And so I went home and I trained my butt off, and I came back and I was bigger and I was stronger. And I graduated high school at 190 pounds. And by my sophomore year of college, I was 242, and they moved me into tight end. And I got a real taste for physicality. I got a real taste for, okay, this is in my bloodline. And, we had some really good teams, and, it was nice to be able to rely on some superstars that could get us out of, certain things like that. But then I had a really bad experience my third year of football, where I didn't go to spring ball because of track and field. And so they moved me down from the starting tight end to the third team tight end, and told me that I had to win my position back. And I was 260 some pounds now. I was still running a 4.7. I was able to do some really, really cool things. And I just wasn't moving up the list. They were bound and determined to teach me a lesson, and to teach everybody else a lesson, that it's, we're a team, but it's all football all the time, 24/7, 365. And, we've got to get together. And I just wasn't buying it. And I ended up quitting right before the first game. And they went 0-11 that year. And so, it wasn't just me. There was a dichotomy within the program that wasn't getting us to trust each other. It wasn't based on ability. It was based on punishment. And so when I went to track, I realized that this was something that I loved, and that I loved not being responsible for a coach telling me who was going to start, or how many passes were going to be thrown my way, or anything like that. And I didn't have to rely on anyone else for my own success. It was just me, my implement, and the ring. And I started to really buy into hearing my name called. And, I had great success at the Mid-American Conference level. I was conference champion and made one NCAA championship and got my rear end handed to me. But like I told you, I had a great mentor in Al Schotterman, and, he believed in me, and he taught me a new way of training and basically said, you give me the next 2 years of your life and I'm going to put you on an Olympic team. And you're going to realize that when you walk into that Olympic stadium, that it was you, and that, yeah, you had training partners. Yes, you had a coach, but when you performed in the trials, it's going to be you and you alone. So, I mean, there's definitely a difference. I mean, my brother was the starting tailback at Ohio State after Archie Griffin left, and he's true and blue, a football player his entire life. My dad was his entire life. But when I quit football, I had an incredible amount of support from both of them saying, you never loved the game. You had some talent, you had some ability, and you tried really hard, but you never loved the game. You never talked about it as passionately as you did of what the discus meant to you, or this newfound event called the hammer throw, which was so difficult for you to learn that you were the worst on the team at it until you brought one home the next summer and came back and was Mid-American Conference champion. So there's definitely a split in the mentality. For some people, they love to rely on that team. And I relied on my team as well. I relied on my training partners to push me in the weight room. But when it came to hearing your name called, it's you and you alone.
That's I love that story. I mean, that's really amazing, and I'd like to think, at least I would like to believe that I think that's changed now. There seems to be a lot of sports now, especially among football, that there is more support for having, if you've got the ability, because I played with guys at Kent State too that were also very good runners, and they would go and they would run track in the spring, and they weren't punished for it. In fact, that they were really supported for it. And because we see it now as, hey, that's gonna, you're gonna go run track, you're gonna go run against really, really fast guys, so you're gonna get really, really fast. So I would like to think that that's not as bad as it used to be.
It's not. It's better now.
Yeah, but college athletics, man, that's a full-time job in and of itself. So there's it's just that's another fine line. But as you started to see success, right? I mean, obviously, where did you focus your training on, is specifically in the weight room? Was there something that you found as you were getting into the Olympics that you thought, well, hey, this move has been really good for me, or was there anything specific that you found that kind of took you over that next hump after you were a MAC champion? What got you into the Olympic trials and then on to those Olympic teams?
I would say the power clean and the front squat. I was taught to power clean by a national champion at 114 pounds, and he never convinced me to try to do a squat clean. He said, we'll train that part with the front squat. And so I would train with him, and he would do his full cleans, and I would do cleans from the floor, but I always tried to catch. My feet would leave the ground, and I would always try to catch in a quarter drop to receive the bar. And when I talked to some of the sports scientists, I realized that I was creating not only a dramatic bar speed, but I was creating a plyometric effect by the way that I received the bar. I see all these kids in high school flat foot cleaning or pulling the bar to their waist and dropping down into a full clean. That's great on max day, but it's just not my philosophy that, I think that can be trained through the front squat. And I became obsessed with the front squat. where in 1986, before I became the first American to ever throw over 80 meters in the hammer and break the American record for the 5th time, I had front squatted 550 for a triple and 602 for a single, with nothing but knee wraps and a belt. And I never realized at the time how strong that was, until I started comparing numbers with other people. My power clean was right around 400 pounds. My snatch was around 318 pounds. But when I met Charles Poliquin, he showed me that I had a lot of weaknesses in my power clean. I remember my radial brachialis was really weak because I didn't do much upper body. And within 12 weeks of doing Poliquin's program, where I didn't do any cleans from the floor through the entire 12 weeks, in week 13, I power clean from the floor with straps and a belt, 200 kilos, 440 pounds. So the clean and the front squat were really big for me. Early on, it was the back squat, but as I got better, I realized that the back squat took a heavier toll on my body than any other exercise that I did. Whereas the front squat, it was able to keep me in better alignment, less stress on my low back, and consequently my pulls went up. So those were my babies.
Do you, is that a foundation that you've brought over to Ashland too?
It is. I still focus early on in their first 2 years. We have a lot of kids who redshirt their freshman year due to the depth that we have in the throws, knowing that they've got 5 years to get through college. They can take, 14, 15 hours a semester and graduate. Other kids take 17, 18 hours and start their master's program in their 5th year. But we focus early on a lot on the back squat, until it gets to a level where I think that it's enough to win a national title, enough to be an All-American. And then we focus more on the clean. We do hang cleans. We do cleans from the floor. We do multi-positional cleans. We do a lot of snatch movements, just not as heavy as back when I did them. I use the snatch as more of like Louis Simmons uses a 14-inch speed bench. And so we do a lot of what I call a Hungarian snatch, which is, I had seen the Hungarians train over in Szombathely, and they were snatching and just banging the bar off their high thigh for like 6 to 8 sets of 2 to 3 reps at 60 to 70%, and just creating these velocities, and you could see it in their finish in the hammer. So I would say that we don't push the snatch as hard and as high as what I did or what maybe I did in my earlier years, but that's become more of a speed movement for us. And we use a lot of variety. I learned from Charles Poliquin a long time ago that 3-week blocks best suit college throwers, because in the 4th, everybody gets stronger in the 3rd week. So if you do 5 sets of 6 in week 1, and then you might do 6 sets of 5 in week 2, and then you do 8 sets of 3 in week 3, you're basically, having a progressive movement of intensity. Volume is dropping. And then in week 4, 20% of your kids are going to improve, 30% are going to stay the same, and 50% put themselves at risk for injury by moving them to singles and doubles. And so that's when we now have a little bit of a download week or a little bit of a testing week. And, I want them right at the cusp where they're like, please coach, one more week. I'm like, when we start the next cycle of cleans in 6 weeks from now, you will start week 1 where you were in week 2. And in week 3, you will do the weights you were going to do in week 4. So that's something I learned from Charles a long time ago, and it suited me very well.
That's awesome. It is really neat to see. I mean, because the human body is just it's a wild thing, and figuring out sometimes how to get the strongest and the most efficient way can be difficult from time to time, because things change all the time too. You know, as you get older, you find out the things that you used to be able to do, you can't do as well, or maybe you can't do at all, whether it's, you know, injury or anything else like that. Have you had to adjust anything in your own training as you progressed? You know, something that you were able to do really, really well in the 80s and 90s that uh, you had to adjust with or completely eliminate out of your programs?
Well, for myself, I remember that I was going to train for the world record at age 50 in the Masters. And that's the one thing I'd never done. I'd never broke a world record. I threw over the world record in the 35-pound weight throw, except Lance Deal threw further 2 throws before me, and we both eclipsed the old world record, but he threw further. And so that was very important to me. And so I started out on a cycle of back squats, and I hurt myself, gave myself some time off, came back, and I hurt myself. And I remember being very depressed about it. And Derek Woodsky, an athlete that I had trained to be the Canadian record holder and now is one of the top authorities in strength and conditioning. Derek came and he said, let's do some squatting. And I'm like, Derek, I just can't anymore. My body won't handle it. And he goes, it's okay. Just follow my workout. So I remember we did 40 kilos for 6 in the back squat. And then we did 60 kilos for 3. And then we went back down to 40 kilos and we added 2 sets of chains. And then we went back to 60 kilos and we added 1 set of chains. And then we went to 80 kilos. And that's the heaviest we went with an empty bar that day. And then we went back down to 70 kilos and we went all the way out to 5 chains per side. And what I realized is it was not the eccentric that I couldn't handle. It was the concentric, and that my body was really ready to fire out of the bottom when all those chains were unloaded. And I learned how to chase the chain. 6 weeks later, I squatted 579 at the age of 50 with, I think, 350 pounds of it in chain. You know, so I came out and the chains are swinging and I'm having to stabilize. And I think I've got like maybe 240 pounds on the bar. And I was able to just smash 579. Now, I couldn't at that time mentally get under 405 in a straight bar weight squat because that's where I kept hurting myself. But yet I was able to get the eccentric value of 579 and then come out of the bottom and chase that chain. And so for me, that was huge. The other thing is in my pulls, I don't turn anything over now. So in the cleans, I don't catch anything. I do, you know, mostly high pulls, and I'll flip my hands a little bit, but I won't catch the bar. And so I don't have the wrist flexibility anymore. I don't have the elbow flexibility. So a lot of the pulls that I do are high pulls. All of the squats that I do are with chain. And then I spend a lot of time on core development and making sure, you know, with green bands that I'm doing my TKEs for knee stability. I'm doing my Pedersen step-ups for VMO stability. I'm doing some type of, you know, we own the Louis Simmons reverse hyper, and I'll do 40% of body weight for 3 sets of 20, 5 days a week for a 3-week cycle. You know, so I make sure that I get all of the base training that I need. And then I also try to walk twice a day, sometimes as little as 10 minutes after lunch and dinner. And I just find that my recovery increases dramatically when I force myself to do those 2 10 to 15 minute walks after meals. And so I'm 61 now. And, you know, due to some medical issues that I had with leukemia, I've been in remission for over a year now. My training has taken a backseat to my health. And when I'm able to start training again, I have the exact template that I need to have to be successful,
Mm-hmm.
to then go out and smash the world records for age 60.
Yeah. That you bring up an important piece there. That was something that I wanted to get into, your battle with leukemia, and talk to me about the mindset, because that's something that I think is so important. And I think that's a connection with the weight room, is the mind piece and overcoming challenges, like you had mentioned, chasing the chains there, overcoming some really difficult things in the weight room and how that can translate into life. Um, when you were diagnosed with that, what was your mental approach afterwards, and how you were handling that?
Well, thank goodness for me that when I got my diagnosis, I was in the room with my wife and his son and one of my daughters, who is a nurse practitioner in oncology. And my other daughter was with us on FaceTime, who's a teacher in Virginia. And between our family, we set out on a plan right away. I remember meeting my oncologist, and I found out that I was going to be eligible for a clinical trial that was very exciting. And I remember 7 people walked into my room the first day, and there was a nurse practitioner, there was a regular nurse, there was a research assistant, there was people from the clinical trial. And my oncologist said, okay, let me tell you how this is going to go. And I put my hand up and I said, before we go any further, let me just tell you how it has to go. And I could see the look on some of the other faces in the room, like, oh no, we got a jerk. And I just said to my oncologist, I said, look, I play for you now. You are my head coach. What I need you to do, if I'm going to be successful in this, is that you have to give me 3 and 4 week training blocks where you tell me what is expected of me and what outcome you are expecting. And I will over accomplish and outrun anyone you have ever worked with, because I guarantee you've never worked with someone that is going to be willing to trust you. I will not be on the internet. I will not be seeking miracle cures. I believe in you. This is why I'm at the Cleveland Clinic. And you tell me what you want me to do. And I now am playing for you because you're the best coach in the country. And I believe in you. And she looked right at me and she goes, you and I are going to get along just fine. But she knew then that, okay, so for the next 3 to 4 weeks, these are the drugs we were going to give you. These are some of the possible side effects. I said, what can I do? She goes, well, you can make sure you keep your calories up, that you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. A lot of people who get cancer, they get sick from the chemo. They don't want to eat. They lose massive amounts of muscle mass. I said, not a problem. I will eat. She goes, you need to have cleanliness. A lot of people feel sorry for themselves and they stop showering and they stop taking care of themselves. I said, okay, done. You got to give yourself the ability to rest, sleep, and take naps. Okay, done. Hour nap every day, 8 to 9 hours sleep every night. And she goes, the last one is you've got to have a belief system and you've got to have a team of support behind you. And I had the most incredible team, from my wife, who stayed with me the first 15 days in the hospital in a chair and never went home. She showered down the hall and in 15 days never went home. She was in the room with me. My daughter, who would tell me, Dad, this is what they mean by this, because she was in this field. And then I had the support of my brothers and my sisters and my mom and my dad and my team at Ashland. And then people around the country like Bert Soren and Brandon Lilly and Jen Wiederstrom and, all of these people, and Derek, that were constantly checking in on me. What do you need? What can I do for you? I had to limit phone calls because I am so passionate when I talk to people on the phone that after one phone call, I was exhausted. But yet I had 32 messages I needed to return. And then so my daughter started a caring bridge to tell people what was going on. And I would just people would message me and I would say thank you, and I'd send them the link for Caring Bridge. But I just had such a supportive team that I went into remission way faster than what they thought possible. I've had, some trials and tribulations along the way. I got a blood clot in my leg. I was on an experimental drug that for 9 hours, I lost the ability to speak or form a sentence. That was immediately returned to me as soon as the drug was unhooked from a fanny pack that I was wearing of a drug that I was going into my system 24 hours a day, but they thought that it was important. And I used that drug again in future cycles and never had a problem. So, I've had days where I was fatigued. I've had days where, it was very difficult, and I'm do 2 shots in my stomach every day with blood thinners to make sure that I don't get another blood clot. But yet at the same time, here I am in the midst of COVID, and I've got all these kids that stayed here for the summer that are just like, Coach, if you can make it out to practice, we'll give you your 10 feet bubble. But we need you. And what I found out is that I needed them, and I would come home from those 1 hour practice feeling incredibly energized. And I missed the indoor national champions because I was in the hospital, and outdoors, I made it to Texas, 105 degrees every day. And I was hurting. We'd get back to the hotel at 11 o'clock at night, and I would sleep till noon the next day. And by 3 o'clock, I was back out there supporting and encouraging and yelling for my team. And it was the most amazing thing in the world to be crowned national champions and to wear those hats and that swag and that confetti cannon and all of those things. So, for the people that are dealing with cancer, you gotta allow people to help you. You've got to find a support system, but you've got to be a little bit selfish. You've got to learn how to take care of your body. You've got to learn that there's a belief in your doctors, and you need to stay away from miracle cures because they're just not facing reality.
Yeah, that's that. I would definitely agree with you. I had a former interview with another teammate of mine who was also battling cancer, and he had a lot of the same things to say. And for him, how fitness has really saved him, because through the chemo, it's kept him alive, and it's given him something to also look forward to and keep his spirits up. So it's just
it's hugely important. I remember my son was coming up to visit me in day 3, and he goes, "What can I bring you? You want your favorite foods? What can I bring you?" I said, "Go to the weight room and bring me my 35-pound Sornex center mass dumbbells." And I would get up like 3 or 4 times a day, and I would just do like 1 set of 10 hammer curls. And then I would go on my walk, pushing my, my meds in my little wheel roller, and I'd walk a mile throughout the Cleveland Clinic. And, so I had to feel like, I was doing something to improve, and knowing that there was more things like that were coming soon.
Right. Absolutely. And it's good to see that things are going a lot better for you, and the fact that it's in remission, that's a great thing. And
over a year now.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that. So I know we got a few more minutes here. Didn't get nearly as much in as I wanted, but that's okay. We can always catch back up. What would you say? I guess we can go with this first. What would be a good book or podcast that you would recommend to anybody?
I find all of the podcasts that Brandon Lilly and Derek Woodsky do to just be fantastic, because they deal more on real life situations and more of a spirituality, maybe not in the sense of, oh, well, I'm not a really religious person, I won't be able to relate. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just a belief system, and life is more than having the perfect sets and reps. Life is more than having the perfect equipment. So, I know that if you Google search any of those things that, I think that you can learn a lot. I think that Joe Ken, since he is no longer employed in the NFL, is starting to put out some really good material. And I will tell you this, I've never met this person I've never met this person in person, but he's on my bucket list. My number one follow on Instagram is a guy by the name of Vernon Griffith. And I don't know if you know who that is, but he's down in Virginia, and he just does, I'm just fascinated with some of the stuff that he's come up with in terms of strength training and mobility and how it relates to movement. So those are some of my favorites, and I've done 8 or 10 myself. And, a lot of what we cover today are in a couple of the other ones, and some of them are on totally different levels of stuff that we were able to get into today. I just did one with MF Athletics that was very good, that can be found. So, I listen to a lot, but those are some of my favorites.
That's great. What about a quote? Do you have a favorite quote? Obviously you've gone through some pretty difficult times over the last year. Was there something that you always kind of went back to remind you how to keep going?
Well, when I was training, I was a big fan of reading and researching Steve Prefontaine. And he simply said, to give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really big for me. And then there was another one that I read from a Polish Olympian that had said that there's good, there's better, and there's best. I will never rest until my good is better and my better is best. And, that became my t-shirt quote for camp. When I was training back in the 80s, my quote was, where ability meets destiny. But my quotes now have changed, because my quotes now as a survivor of leukemia is simply this, is that don't worry about me. I'm built for this. So that's what I tell people who worry about me. There's a lot of people that are way sicker than me. There's a lot of people going through a lot more than I've gone through. I'm built for this. Don't worry about me, because I've never asked for easy. I've only asked for possible. And that's what I told my oncologist, 6 weeks in. I said, look, I'm not looking for the easy road. I'm not telling you, hey, don't give me a lot of the drugs that are going to make me sick so I can't be around my team. I said, but don't take away the possibility that I can get back to coaching. Don't take away the possibility that I can live a long life. So those thoughts and those quotes have changed over the years. But for right now, I'm going with, I don't want easy. I just want possible.
I love that. That's such a true testament to life too, because life in and of itself is not easy. But if we have the possibility to succeed, then we can do pretty much anything. And I really love that. That's a really great quote. Couple more things here to finish up, and we didn't get to talk about it as much, but can you just describe what it was like, those 4 opportunities to represent the United States? What was that like? Was it just a feeling of euphoria, or can you describe some of the emotions behind that?
Nothing will ever trump the first Olympics. Number one, it was the first team that I had made. The games were going to be held in Los Angeles. My entire family was going to be there. I'll never forget. We were sponsored by Levi's, and they chose to put us in velour blue sweatpants and sweat jackets that increase your body temperature by about 30 degrees. And we're in the tunnel. We're the last team to come out. And I was standing beside Mac Wilkins, one of the greatest United States Olympians, who this was, I think, his third games. And we were getting ready to come out of the tunnel. We were the last team. And all of a sudden in the LA Coliseum, 100,000 people in there, millions more watching on TV, little pieces of concrete started falling from the ceiling. And I turned to Mac and I said, "Is this my first earthquake?" And he said, "No, you'll understand in a minute." And we walked out of the stadium and it was people on their feet stomping to USA, USA. And it was the most unbelievable feeling to describe, to realize that we were marching behind the American flag out onto the field with numerous other Olympians. Jesse Owens' granddaughter brought the Olympic torch into the stadium and passed it off to decathlete Rayford Johnson, who then ran the Olympic cauldron up the steps to light the torch. And then Edwin Moses, the greatest 400-meter hurdler and potentially one of the greatest track athletes in the history, read the Olympic oath. And it just realized at that time that all of the hard work, all of the effort was not going to be about medals, was not going to be about American records. But, there's a saying that, you're never a former Olympian. You are an Olympian for life. And that moment hit me right there, that realized that that word, that phrase will always be behind me. But it was something that motivated me even more to want to do that again. And in 1988, we did it. In 1992, we did it. And then after retiring and coming back at the age of 41, I made my fourth Olympic team for Sydney, Australia. And, all of the opening ceremonies were fantastic, but it was that first one, walking behind that American flag and realizing that I will be known for an Olympian for the rest of my life.
Wow, that's awesome. What a cool story. It's and those are the things that you always take with you. And it's just really neat, really, really neat. And you've had an outstanding career. You've had an outstanding career coaching. You've had an outstanding career in the weight room. I mean, there's just been so many things that you've been able to accomplish. So really, when I break it down, because my motto here for Morning Lifter is strength and leadership. So what would you say if there was one word or phrase that you had to describe strength, what would it be?
Work wins. And I'm stealing that from Joe Ken. He says, words win, work wins. And for me, the ability to do hard work is unparalleled. You don't have to be I'm sure when we were doing sets of 15 in the snatches and the cleans, we weren't doing the best program. I've told coaches forever that a bad coach that's believed in is better than a good coach who's not believed in. And you can have all the toolboxes in the world and all of the things that can make you be great. But if you don't have your team, if you don't have that team culture, if you don't have that belief, then you don't have a team. But if a good coach is believed in and has his team, then the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
It's endless as to what you can accomplish.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that just like what we talked about at the very beginning, that buy-in, you get that buy-in from the kids or from anybody, whether it's an organization or whatever, then you really can't be stopped. How about leadership?
Leadership, I think, is created by the culture that the kids notice in how the coach treats other people. Is he a yeller and a screamer? Is he a motivator? Is he someone who treats athletes free? Does he treat athletes fairly? And is he someone that they can believe in, that they can follow? All of the great leaders have had that buy-in because they've created a culture. And, you don't have to say my way is the highway. It's either my way or the highway. You just have to lead from the front by your, how you maintain your life, from how you treat your own children to how you are as a husband and a wife, and how you are as a human being. And I think leadership starts with being a good person and sticking to what you believe in, and, setting a culture and then following through. You can't all of a sudden say we have this culture and then your top athlete is breaking all the rules, but you're afraid of losing him because he's the best person on your team. And without him, you're not going to be considered a great coach. You just can't have that.
Right.
You have to set a standard. You have to set a gold standard for your kids. And if you do that, if you're that type of leader, they will follow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of my favorites comes from John Maxwell, that leadership is influence. And without the influence, then you're not going to get very far. And that goes back to that buy-in as well. So
fantastic.
Yeah. So here's your chance for a shameless plug. If people want to follow you, get a hold of you, or if there's something that, if people wanted to donate to a leukemia cause, whatever you want to shout out for, I wanted to give you an opportunity to do that.
Yeah. I'm on all the socials. I'm on Facebook. It always seems like I'm nearing my friend limit at 5,000. And then, I don't know, either I delete some people because things get too political or whatever, but they can follow me on Facebook. It's just Jud Logan, JUDLOGAN. My Instagram is Olympian 4X. And, I go hot and cold with posting material, but they can certainly, scan back and find some of the things that have been cool in my life. And, some of the things that are important to me. If there's throwers out there, I have DVDs for hammer, shot put, discus, weight training for throwers, for explosive athletes, that they can inbox me about doing. I'm working on a book called Vetting Excellence that I can't tell you when it's going to be done, because it always seems to be a work in progress and something that I'm not going to be happy with until I know that I put out my life's work. And, there's been people who are like, please, I understand your message, but you've got to get that book out. You've got to get that book out. And I want to, but it's not, when I look at health and I look at my team, it's not the number one priority. So it's something that I do want to finish. But for right now, I don't do, personal training or anything like that. My team comes number one, my family comes number one. And I try to share as much content as I can.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Well, I appreciate it, Jud. Thank you very much, man, for the time.
It's been fun. I really enjoyed it. And, I look forward to being able to share this across multiple platforms. When you get it up, let me know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And see if we can't blow this thing up a little bit.
That's great. I look forward to it. And in the meantime, you keep yourself healthy, stay safe, and hopefully all of this blows over soon enough, and we can all get back to coaching and teaching and helping people.
You got it, brother. Thank you.
All right, my man. Take care of yourself.
All right. Bye-bye.
See ya.